The team, not 30 years old, brand new, only joining the league last year, already valued at $1 billion. It's the first women's team in any sport to reach that valuation. Welcome to New York. How are you?
Thank you. We're happy to be here. Happy to talk about the Valkyries.
Okay, well, you have some New Yorkers here, and you guys play the Liberty later this week. So
we do.
We're going to try to keep things,
civil.
I mean, so you're telling me you're not cheering for the Valkyries, just to confirm.
Listen, we are unbiased journalists, who are just focused on, asking the questions and getting the good answers.
Well, you both look great in violet.
So that's what we're going to do. Can you talk a little bit about just the business side of this? Yeah. Because the valuation is just mind-boggling after a year. You said to us as we were talking, you're in New York a lot because there are a lot of business opportunities here. What is the business behind the team right now?
Well, I think, to back up, for so long, people have talked about wanting more for women's sports, more games, more visibility, et cetera. And of course, more payment for the players. And that starts with building business and making sure that you're doing that unapologetically. And so the opportunity is really that there is a unique audience, as well as an audience to convert that might be a traditional sport fan into this incredible product for those that are growing with it, as well as to create something new. I think women's sports specifically, and the WNBA as a leader here, is a mix of sport and purpose and culture. So yes, you're focused on selling out your games, creating the best fan experience, but you're also focused on building community and connection in a much deeper way. And how you're doing that and how you're building business around it is really important. And so, go ahead.
Sorry, finish your thought.
And so as we're building, for us, we are relentless on making sure, of course, the traditional revenue lines, ticketing, partnership, merchandise, everything to do with the game day and so forth are ones that are really strong. But we are also constantly thinking about what are other pathways to revenue expansion and fandom expansion.
For years, women's sports executives have had to prove that there is enough demand. Do you think that conversation has fundamentally changed?
It has. And there's a lot of steps that got us here. A lot of people right now are saying you're a year old. It's incredible that you have this valuation. But for us, we were able to build this way because of the work that's been done year over year over year. The WNBA is 30 years old, as we talked about. And visibility and game ratings and fandom is on the rise. When you saw this incredible negotiation finalized for the CBA this last year, if you look back 5 years and forward 5 years, it's really hard to get this right, to look at the upward trajectory for everybody involved. And that's a great sign of what's to come.
I'm thinking more about also thinking about the brand deals and sort of the stuff that comes with in addition to ticket sales. And I'm wondering about positioning players, how you're thinking about image, how you're thinking about recruiting these players who, in some cases, have huge followings already on Instagram and have become their own brands through social media. How do you think about that, and how do you juggle all that?
I mean, you're seeing a lot of these rookie classes flood in with incredible followership and influence. But by the way, that's with every sports league, right? These are folks that have been making content for a really long time already, that have had representation for a long time already, and are coming with that expertise coming into the league. And that's matching these veteran players that have been building this league and producing. And it's creating a really fun product. I think for a long time in women's sports, it was thought of that these athletes were just athletes. And what you're seeing now, and a lot of the brand deals that you're seeing and storytelling that's taking place, is showing these multidimensional women. Some are fashion designers, some are really dedicated to building in the youth sports space and providing that access for young girls. Who they are off the court allows that idolization and fandom to take a lot of different shapes. It's no longer, in men's sports too, just these superstars that are the top 3 to 5 players in a league. It's an opportunity for every young boy and girl to look and find an athlete that they relate to in some way, shape, or form.
What has the organization done right to scale the franchise so quickly and create the stardom and fandom that you are talking about?
Most importantly, we've listened. I think sometimes when you're building a business, you can have a vision and just start to execute it, but you really have to stop and think through, are you being intentional? Are you building what the fans are asking you to build? Is this something that the players want to represent themselves and make sure that, they're a part of that continued growth? Everything from our team name, we had put a survey out to say, what should we name the team? And over 25% of people wrote in the Valkyries. It was on the table, but as we went through the other options, we kept coming back to it because we said the fans are asking us for this. Throughout this entire journey, we want to make sure that we are building this team with our community and with our fans. And so far, that's been something that's landed well and, really created a special environment.
I mean, it worked really well last year. You had a really impressive inaugural season, the first expansion team to clinch a playoff spot in the first season. How do you replicate that this year? Or maybe a better question to ask would be like, how did you get to that level right off the bat?
Yeah, I think there's two things for us. One, the Golden State culture. So one piece that we had an opportunity to come into is being a part of Golden State, this ownership group, this venue that we get to play in. It's premier, but people think of Golden State and they know this is an organization that wants to win. In fact, our owner came out when we launched the team, even before I was hired, and said, we're going to win a championship in the first 5 years. But they also want to do things the right way. And so we have that roadmap to make sure people really trust that. But the second piece is to invest, making sure that we're investing in that fan experience and everything in between, that it is attracting the demand into the community that we've had a chance to build. And I think if you're talking to our GM and our head coach and myself, when we sat down at the end of this last season and we thought, what went well? What do we want to bring with us? What are things that we want to shift? The reality is we laid a great foundation, but it is a foundation. We have a lot more work to do to continue to grow this, but it's a yes and year for us. And so I think to talk about them for a minute, because they're both incredible leaders, they have in year one created a culture where we had the most returning players come back to our roster. In addition to that, they landed 2 incredible free agents in Gabby Williams and Kia Stokes to add to that for year 2 of a team. I think often you're not seeing people necessarily look to run to an expansion franchise, but a lot of credit goes to them in the connectivity and the trust that they've built with these players.
The Valkyries, of course, had become the first women's sports team to reach $1 billion valuation. What do you think that the broader sports industry is still missing when it comes to the business opportunity in women's sports?
Just how quickly it's growing. I think even with this $1 billion valuation, which is such a testament, again, to so many people doing great work, there's still the questions of, okay, is this it? And the reality is this is just the beginning. It's the beginning of the beginning, as Peter Cooper likes to say. When you think about the WNBA specifically, this new CBA, even when you fast forward to next year, there's an opportunity to play 15% more games per season.
This is the collective bargaining agreement.
Correct. Okay. Yes. And so, that alone is going to continue to create these opportunities for visibility, fandom. You look at expansion. We're adding 2 teams this year. We have Portland and Toronto playing, and then 3 more teams. We have Detroit, Cleveland, and Philadelphia joining by 2030. That's 18 teams, but who's not to say there's not more on the horizon?
Do you think there is?
I mean, that's a great question for the commissioner. What I would say is that I hope so. When we think of these markets and the opportunity to expand this league, expand the roster spots, expand this fandom, for instance, we're a great example. A ton of WNBA fans in Northern California. Then you get a team. Then it's rabid fandom and fans within the Valkyrie system. That's good for everybody.